Hi, and welcome to another video in the RHCE video series. Today's video is on users and groups. So essentially managing users and groups via Ansible, and that's using two of the built-in or core Ansible packages, and one of them is Ansible built-in.group, and the other one is Ansible.built-in.user. And we can use those to create new groups or remove groups for the group one, and then for users we can use that to manage users, create users, all the kind of standard user operations you may want to do. So I'll run through a few examples here of how we'd use that, and hopefully that'll be helpful to you. Okay, so first things first, I'll go ahead and create a group for the user we're going to add later. It makes sense logically to do the groups first, so let's go ahead and do that. So as always, let's create a YAML file. Let's call it group management. I'll set host sort as always. We won't gather facts. And we'll just do some tasks and create group. Let's create group accounting. Okay, and then it will be Ansible.built built-in group, and then we have name, we call it accounting, and the state equals present. So essentially we're just adding a group. We can also say GID, and we can set the GID for the group itself, and let's set it as 1750. Okay, doesn't really matter, it's just an arbitrary number. So if we do a right quit, and then we go ahead and run this, and inventory, and just group.yaml. So we got it changed, and that looks like it's completed. So I'll jump onto the host, and we have a new group here of accounting with the GID of 1750, exactly as we set. Okay, so let me clear the screen. So how can we check a group exists? We literally do not change anything. If we run exactly the same command, it will just double check that group is there. So if I do the same thing again, it will just say okay. So that means the group's there and we're already configured. Don't do anything else. So that's happy. So what we can now do is, if we change the GID to something else, it will then check if that's correct. You now get it changed. So you see now we've actually updated the GID of that group, which is great. So if you needed to do that for whatever reason, you can certainly do that via this action. Let's clear the screen. Okay, so that's almost all the group actions you want to do. The only other thing probably left is to actually remove the group. and that will be just a state of absent. Don't believe you need the GID, but we'll try it with it there, and let's see what happens. It may moan. Just get it changed. That's good. So we can then go back onto the host and do etc group and grep for was it counting? So yeah, it's definitely not there. I'll just do another cat, and we have no counting at the end there. So that's removed it successfully. So what I will do is just go back and actually just recreate that group again, because I need that for the next step. So I'll just put that as present again. Okay, so right quit, run that through again, and we have this. We'll have the group back on the system. Okay, as you can see, the group side of things is really pretty simple. As you know from the actual running at the command line, there's only so much you can do from the group perspective. It's just adding groups and removing groups. It really is the core functionality of that of the groups. So adding users is done by the user module, and essentially there's not too much. There's quite a bit more you can do, obviously, and one of the things obviously we're going to show here is adding a user to a specific group, because we have created a group for this purpose. We can also do things like setting the UID for the user. We can set them with a specific shell. We can generate an SSH key with certain key sizes. We can also set an expiry date and all that good stuff as required. So let's go ahead and create a couple of users and see how we go. So we've created a group again, so I'll just do a CPM group and call it user. Okay, and VIM on user now. Okay, so now we call this user management, and we create user called Steve. Okay, and we're going to change this to Ansible built-in user, and you'll be surprised to see that some of the format is the same. So the user will be Steve. Yeah, so we can use the state to add or remove a user. So I'll just do state present, but obviously it's kind of implied in this case. A GID is not what we want. We can set the UID of the user. So let's set it to something arbitrary. Hopefully it hasn't been used already on the system. We've been adding and removing users quite a lot. We add the group. We already had the group before, so it would be accounting. Okay, and let's set his shell to bin bash because he loves bash. That's good. Let's also generate him an SSH key. So we can do SSH login via key to potentially other hosts. So this one just is yes to generate the key, and then these are the values that we want to set for the actual key generation. So one of them would be the SSH key bits. So this is optional, and this would be the size of the actual key. So 2048 is probably a fair number, and that's probably good enough for SSH key. We can have a comment if we wanted to, so it'll be SSH key underscore comment. I won't set this for this case. We can set a specific file name or path. We can set a passphrase. yeah, it's a good idea, obviously, to keep it with a passphrase, so at least you authenticate in some way, um, rather than it just going straight in. But in this case, to be easy, I'm not going to set a passphrase, but SSH underscore key underscore passphrase, and we set up a password essentially. And then you've also got the SSH underscore key type, and most cases is RSA, and I don't think we really will change from that. So we most of the time we just leave the defaults. These are probably the only ones you may change potentially, but let's see. It's every person's case is different, but this is the pretty much the standard directory. So in the home users home directory .ssh, and then in the file called id underscore rsa, which is their id file. So I'll set, this should be enough for now. I think that's enough, and we'll go ahead and create Steve in accounting group. So let me just clear my screen. Ansible playbook -i and inventory, and then it was user.yaml. Let's see how I've done. So I've got, the group doesn't exist, so let me check what I create the group as. I've got memory like a sieve sometimes. Accounting looks right. Let me just copy this. So what have I done wrong? It's probably me being a dunce. In here I have, group looks okay. Let me just use my terrible spelling. It looks, yeah, it looks right now. I think I had something missing there. Maybe I didn't run the group command since deleting it. I thought I did. It's created and it says okay. So the group's there. We've got a change now. Okay, so it's happy. So obviously I couldn't type accounting, which is, yeah, by the by. So it's created the user because it's got changed. If we run it twice, we should just get an okay now because the user's already there. So it's not going to go ahead and create it twice or whatever. So we can go in here. We logged in as root, so we can double check stuff. So if we do a ls minus lhtra, we should have a home, and then Steve, and then we should have also a .ssh and id.rsa. We have an id.rsa file, and so it's generated SSH key. It's got a private key now, which is great. So that looks good. So obviously, let's have a look at the list of users. So let's check the etc shadow for the user. And yeah, Steve is there at the very bottom there. So it looks like he's created as a user. Let's see if Steve's a member of the group we added earlier. Grep accounting. Doesn't look like he's a member of the group for whatever reason. Okay. Did do that, no. Okay, what should have done is done groups rather than group. So I'm setting the, rather than the primary group, let that be the default of his name, and then it will be the secondary groups that will be accounting is what I actually want. So let's rerun this again. And it's got changed, which is good. So now if I log in to the system, we now have him added to the group. That's correct. Okay, so that's good. So just groups rather than groups. So I added him as the primary group actually of accounting, which is not quite right. It's not exactly what I wanted. So I wanted it as a secondary group that he's a member of, rather than being his primary group. So let's get rid of Steve actually. So he's just been let go by the company, unfortunately. So we're going to have to go ahead and remove him. So what do? We can get rid of this generate SSH keys. Obviously, we don't want that anymore. if we do a, oops, I think I can leave that. Let's get rid of him from here. Oh, no, I don't want to do that. I want to do state equals absent. The UID should be fine. Let's go ahead and right quit and run it. Still says create, but never mind. And we should, there's no member of accounting called Steve anymore. It's kept his home directory, which is normal, unless we specifically tell it to remove that home directory, which we can use remove. So I could have done, let me do a so let me go and add another line actually. So Steve is as absent. I think he's already there. So let me just go and add him again. So present again. So let's clean him up properly this time. Okay. So I didn't remember the remove yes. So I've created him again. Okay. And I'm going to go get rid of him again. So we do absent. And I also want to say remove and say yes. So I remove his home directories as well. So we really do clean up the system. Okay, so we've done that. Let's go now into the system and check the home directory is gone. Home, and there's no Steve. Cool, so that's cleaned him up properly and he's completely removed from the system. There is just one final thing I want to show you, and that is literally how to create a user's password. And once you generated it, then use that to create the user with the password. So it's not quite as easy as just literally typing the password into the module or even prompting for it like we would use normally. So the actual module requires you to generate it with a password via a password hash with a salt. So it's a bit of a, this is one of a difficult one, and it's one you're going to have to somehow remember. So what we need to do is run this single line command. So it's just Ansible all, so as in all hosts -i localhost, so the system itself is going to run it on. We're going to do a comma, and then we're going to do a -m debug, so we're going to call the debug module. -a is the argument, and then we've got brackets msg message, and then we've got two squiggly brackets. We then have your password in plain text, so we're going to put it in plain text one time. So I'll set the password as test, being very original. Then we have a space and a line, and then password underscore hash, so the hash value of the password, so how strong the password is going to be. We're going to have it as a SHA-512, so that's the value that is required for Linux, and then another comma, another space, and then a salt value, so that's the value it uses to additionally encrypt it. So we're going to have a salt as our salt value. It doesn't really matter what it's set to, but as long as you remember it. And then two squiggly brackets to close, and then a double quotation mark to end it. So it's going to run this with the debug. So basically using the debug module to generate a password hash for the password of test. So we should get a success message, and this is the password in the encrypted format. So we can use the entire thing. So copy that. So you'd obviously want to delete your history on your system so we don't see what the password is in plain text, and no screen sharing or whatever while you're doing this. So go back to the user module. Here's something I created earlier. So we've got a brand new user called Clive. It's going to be present, and we're going to we've got the group. we're going to find, just set there a password, and it is literally as easy as pasting this value in and right quit. So we run it now, we should get a changed. Yep, we did. So now if we try and log in as Clive at 10.02.8, which is my system, and we use the new password I created, we are in. So that's working absolutely fine. So awesome. That is literally all I wanted to cover here for this module. There's it does pretty much achieve all the goals of creating a user. Yep, I hope this has been useful to you, and thanks again for watching. Right now I've just popped up on the screen my TeePublic page. That's for any kind of CSG merch, if that's anything you're interested in. Got my Ko-fi page for any kind donations, if that's something you're interested in. Yep, and also just the details of my Discord server, so that's the best place to ask questions. Also, we've got, obviously, you can ask questions in the comments and I'll try and help out where I can, but Discord place is a great place. We've got a bit of a community going there, and you can reach out to myself and also the community, and someone will try and help you. Yeah, it's a great community we're building there. Well, thanks again, and I'll see you at the next video. Cheers.